Have you ever felt like someone was watching you, even though every aisle around you was completely empty? If you ever find yourself working the night shift at a 24-hour supermarket and see someone standing perfectly still at the end of an aisle, don't walk toward them. Because there are things in this world that you're never supposed to see. And what happened to me that night? Made sure I would never work another night shift again. My name is Ethan. 2 years ago, I worked the overnight shift at a Walmart on the outskirts of a small American town. The store was massive, open 24 hours a day, and during the night, only a handful of employees were on duty. Most people thought the night shift was boring. Restocking shelves. Mopping the floors. Checking inventory. Nothing ever happened. At least, that's what I believed. Until I learned about one rule that was never written in the employee handbook. Never enter aisle 16 after 3 a.m. if you hear the sound of a shopping cart rolling by itself. At first, I thought it was just another joke the older employees liked to tell the new guy. Then came my 7th night. The clock read 2:57 a.m. The store was nearly empty. Only Melissa, the cashier. George, the elderly security guard. And me, stocking canned food. The silence was almost unbearable. Even the humming of the refrigerator sounded unusually loud. Then I heard it. Creak. 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 The unmistakable sound of shopping cart wheels. I looked up. No one. The sound was coming from aisle 16. I assumed a customer had wandered into the store late at night. As I started walking toward it, George suddenly called my name. Don't. His voice was quiet. But firm. I asked him why. The color drained from his face. Just ignore it. That's not a customer. I laughed. I thought he was kidding. George didn't smile. Not even a little. A few minutes later, the shopping cart stopped. I went back to work. Then the store speakers crackled. Attention Walmart associates. It sounded completely normal. Until the announcement dissolved into static. Then, a woman's voice whispered. It has seen you. Every light in the store flickered at the same time. Melissa stepped away from the registers, looking confused. Did you guys hear that? George grabbed his walkie-talkie. No response. Only static. At 3:12 a.m., I was asked to retrieve detergent from the stockroom. The warehouse was dark. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. As I searched through the shelves, I heard footsteps behind me. Tap. 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 I turned around. Nothing. Then the footsteps came again. Closer. Tap. 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 I called out. No answer. As I headed for the exit, I noticed someone standing between the storage racks. Nearly 7 feet tall. Thin. Its head hung low. I assumed it was another employee. Hey. No response. I took another step. Slowly. The figure lifted its head. It had no eyes. No nose. No mouth. Only smooth, pale skin where a face should have been. I froze. The lights went out. Darkness swallowed the room. I ran without looking back. George slammed the stockroom door shut the moment I stumbled out. His breathing was heavy. I warned you. Never go looking for it. I demanded to know what that thing was. George remained silent for a long moment. Then he finally spoke. 20 years earlier. An overnight employee had disappeared without a trace. Security footage showed him walking toward aisle 16, following someone. The strange part. The cameras never captured anyone else. Only the employee. It looked like he was following something. The cameras couldn't see. His body was never found. Ever since that night. Employees occasionally reported seeing a tall, faceless figure. Always after 3 a.m. Always in aisle 16. I finally believed him. But the worst was still waiting. At 3:33 a.m. Every light in the store shut off. Complete darkness. The backup generator usually took 30 seconds to kick in. 30 seconds had never felt so long. In the darkness. I heard breathing. Not one person. Dozens. As if an entire crowd was standing between the aisles. Then. The shopping cart started moving again. Creak. 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 It stopped. Right behind me. I didn't dare turn around. George had told me one final rule. If it's standing behind you, never look. I squeezed my eyes shut. The breathing grew closer. Cold air brushed the back of my neck. Then a whisper. You saw me. The generator finally came back online. The lights returned. I spun around. Nothing. Only an empty shopping cart. Inside it was my Walmart employee ID badge. But my badge was still supposed to be in my pocket. I reached inside. It was gone. We closed off part of the store. Melissa was crying. She wanted to leave. George refused. We stay until sunrise. It never appears after 6. The clock read 4:21 a.m. The overhead speakers activated again. Clean up on aisle 16. Again. And again. And again. No one had touched the intercom. I glanced at the security monitors. Aisle 16 looked empty. But in the reflection on the polished floor, a tall figure stood directly behind the camera. George grabbed a flashlight. I'm ending this. I followed him. Aisle 16 looked perfectly normal. Snacks. Soft drinks. Cleaning supplies. Nothing unusual. George sighed with relief. Then. He froze. I followed his gaze. At the far end of the aisle, the faceless figure was standing there. Completely still. George screamed. Run! I turned and sprinted. When I looked back, George was gone. His flashlight lay on the floor. Still on. But George had vanished. As if he had never existed. The police arrived an hour later. They searched every inch of the building. They found nothing. Security footage showed me running alone. There was no George. No Melissa. No faceless figure. Even stranger. Walmart told me no employees named George or Melissa had ever worked there. I showed them the work schedule I'd photographed earlier that week. Their names were gone. Replaced by people I'd never met. I started questioning my own sanity. Had any of it really happened? Or had I completely lost my mind? A week later, I quit. I swore I'd never work another overnight shift. Months passed. Then one day, I received an anonymous email. It contained only one attachment. Security footage. The night everything happened. In the video, I was running alone. Just as the police had said. But seconds before the recording ended, the freezer door reflected something behind me. A tall figure. Thin. Completely faceless. This time, It slowly raised one hand. As if it was waving goodbye. Since then, every time I walk into a 24-hour supermarket, I always check the end of every aisle. Because every now and then, I still hear the sound of shopping cart wheels rolling on their own. Creak. 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 And whenever the sound suddenly stops, I know it's standing right behind me.